Hello, my name is Kirioth, and today we are going to have a little chat about the potential mortal followers of Slaanesh that we might see accompanying Noise Marines, Fulgrim, some sort of Emperor's Children Terminator unit, that kind of thing. And this is brought on by essentially a piece of artwork that was in a Warhammer community article talking about what Slaanesh has been doing in the universe of the Age of Sigmar. And it's a really good bit of artwork, to be honest. It's really dark, it's genuinely grim, and I don't really keep up with Age of Sigmar as much as I should, but it feels like there's not a huge amount of grim in there currently. This feels, thanks to just how, I guess, it just seems very, very dark, this particular image. It seems a lot more dark than most of the stuff I've seen for Age of Sigmar recently, and in fairness, I think it kind of feels a bit more dark than a lot of stuff for Warhammer 40k. I mean, the last few set of releases have been fun, they've been interesting, they've been good, and I'm not going to complain about new chaos stuff ever. But the inclusion of things like the new Primaris stuff, which is all very high-tech, modern, sleek equipment, it kind of takes the edge off the insanity of things like the Master of Possession or the I've forgotten his name now. The executioner dude with the giant axe. I forget his name. But this is properly grim and properly dark. And it made me think about the kind of equivalence that we see between Death Guard and Thousand Sons and the expected equivalence that we would see from Emperor's Children when that codex rolls around, which, you know, it should do eventually. The Death Guard have access to Poxwalkers, and of course they have access to Nurgle demons, plague bearers, so on and so forth. Thousand Sons have got access to the various horrors that Tzeentch provides, and of course they've got access to Tzaangors as well. In the bit of artwork, we can clearly see some mortal followers of Slaanesh. It looks like a rather excellent looking Keeper of Secrets has thoroughly mangled what I'm assuming to be is another Keeper of Secrets, and the Pretender has been slain, obviously, and there are mortal followers celebrating that. There are demonettes in the background as well, but you can clearly see there are mortal followers who are celebrating or still in the midst of fighting. There's one reaching out and touching the wound and the blood of the one that's just been killed. It's a genuinely excellent bit of I was going to say 40k art, but it's not 40k, Age of Sigmar, but you get the idea. And to be honest, as soon as I looked at that, I kind of thought, if that's what the mortal followers of Slaanesh look like, that's cool. That's what I'd expect them to look like. You know, there seems to be a good number of things like piercings. The weapons are very sleek. They're very slim. They're quite evil looking. It looks like an excessive amount of scarring on all of them. I mean, whether that is down to battle or a ritualistic thing or it's Slaanesh. It's all about excess, and pain can become excessive. So it could well be a mix of all of those. You know, scars developed in battle, scars developed from hurting themselves, quite literally. There's a good amount there that, should that become an actual kit, and let's be honest, Games Workshop are getting very good at only putting stuff in pictures that we will at some point see. I mean, there's maybe a few exceptions, but for the most part, when we look at artwork now, especially if it's new artwork, you can kind of expect to see like 90% of what's in there released as a model. They've been very good at that for a fair while now. And Slaanesh having its own set of mortal followers would make sense in Age of Sigmar, and I'm talking like tabletop model wise. Obviously, they're all going to have their own mortal followers, the different gods, but I mean, look how much stuff Khorne's got in Age of Sigmar. Having demons and some mortal followers does not seem completely out of the realms of possibility, and they are there in the art, which kind of leads me to think that something like that will show up at some point, whether it might be now or later, I don't know. But it did make me think, for 40k, what would be appropriate? What would work for mortal followers of Slaanesh? And truth be told, I don't know whether there would need to be that much of a difference. Like, this image is obviously very fantasy, it's very dark fantasy, but it's very fantasy. There's not much in there that you'll class as sci-fi. But you could say the same thing about the Tzaangors as well, and those work pretty well. Those actually fit the Thousand Sons quite nicely. The idea of a group of mortal followers of Slaanesh who use I would suggest like primitive weapons who focus on things like melee combat, who are only equipped with swords or at the most swords and pistols, who are not in it to win but are in it to get as much sensation before they die as possible, works really, really well. And it totally fits the descriptions that are given of the Emperor's Children when they first fall. In which one is it now? It's the one where Fulgrim ascends to becoming a demon prince, where he has his he gets, spoilers by the way for whichever book of the Horus Heresy it is, because I can't remember which one it is. But when he joins Perturabo, whose name I hate, and they go and get some spirit stones, and he rams them into himself and has a nice little ritual and becomes all winged and scaly and four-armed and just a bit of a mess. There is a part of that book where it describes the Emperor's Children kind of entering the Iron Warriors encampment, and the Iron Warriors do not know what the fuck is going on. They are like disgusted, they're taken aback, they're just like, what is this? Because the Emperor's Children are not alone. They have accumulated like a vast following of mortals who dance and prance and sing and break out into just literal orgies in the middle of the procession of the Emperor's Children coming into this encampment, and it's just like a riot of colour and noise and death as they stop and are just like trodden underfoot. That would still work perfectly well for 40k. It would absolutely work for 40k. It would especially work in the context of Slaanesh, in the context of mortal followers who are not living for any purpose other than to feel. Being herded into ships, being like dropped down on planets and just cavorting their way into battle, getting annihilated, and they don't care. That's what they're there for. They're there to feel and feel only, and the more extreme the feeling is, the better it is. You could pretty much keep them as they appear in this bit of artwork, and it would still work. It would still function perfectly well, and it would still fit the aesthetic perfectly well. I mean, the Death Guard have the Poxwalkers. The Poxwalkers are weird, creepy, like infected, half zombified, just monstrosities that shamble away across the board. They are the embodiment of death and decay. The Thousand Sons have got the Tzaangors, which are weird as anything. They do look genuinely weird and creepy and otherworldly and changed and not as they should. Slaanesh, I don't think, actually needs that. Slaanesh just needs normal, everyday people who have been completely taken in by this need to feel anything and everything, like 1,000 times more than they can actually withstand. I think it would be more effective, even, if alongside things like Demonettes and Noise Marines and Terminators that have got like scraps of skin that have been torn off, either themselves or other people, riotous colours, black and pink and gold and purple and white. If you've got all of this going on, and in the middle of it are people who once were normal but are now completely enslaved to this idea of excess, who have to be there because that is the only thing that they can, it's the only way they can feel, is to feel too much. That would be more effective, I think. That would be more evocative of what Slaanesh is. Like, Slaanesh is, in some cases, is weird and creepy, and those are the bits I like the most. I mean, one of the reasons I love the Keeper of Secrets so much, the new Keeper of Secrets, is because of how otherworldly, and I think someone did say that, like, that kind of what's like existential dread kind of sensation that you get from, it's like Lovecraftian almost, or extraterrestrial kind of horror. That thing of it being just not quite right. It's recognisably humanoid, but there are so many details that are so off. That combined with the Demonettes, combined with the new Fiends, which again have that awful quality of having recognisable, like, human traits, and yet being so completely alien. I mean, the Herald with the harp that is actually the tendons of the dude that it's been implanted into his arms, all of that. Combine that with just almost not normal, but people who clearly once were normal. People who used to have standard lives, who used to have standard feelings, who used to do standard everyday human things, but have become so corrupted, so enthralled with this idea of excess that they will drop everything they used to know, everything they used to own, everything that they are is given over to this god. They are prepared to go into battle alongside Noise Marines and Terminators and Bikers and Fulgrim himself just to feel. That is properly Slaanesh, because that is that kind of taking the known and making it so much more disturbing and so much more excessive and so much more over the top and just not right. If we did see these guys in this artwork, essentially with the same sort of weapons, but maybe with a pistol as well, that would be more than good enough for me, because that would actually suit Slaanesh really, really well, in my opinion. And added on to that, the design of them is kind of good and does fit so very, very well. But yeah, that is a little bit of rambling about what we might be able to expect to see from some mortal followers of Slaanesh, both from Age of Sigmar and 40k, really, if we think about it. And almost entirely brought on just by this ridiculously cool bit of artwork. So yeah, that is what I was thinking. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, whether it should be kind of normal people gone mental, almost Mad Max style, or whether it should be something more otherworldly and a bit more Tzaangor-ish or Poxwalker-ish. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click any of the things, Patreon video, subscribe, all that shit. Click it if you like, don't click if you don't want to, and I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.